Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fluent Start, and welcome back to Season 2. Today feels a little different, not in a complicated way, but in a more personal way. I don't really want to teach something step by step today. I don't want to focus too much on structure or patterns. I just want to sit here with you and talk, like a real conversation. So let's talk about something that feels simple, but actually isn't. Self-control. It's one of those things that we all understand, but at the same time, we all struggle with. And I think it shows up in our daily life more than we realize. Sometimes self-control is about small things, very small things. Like when you wake up in the morning, your alarm rings, you know you should get up. You know you have things to do. But then you press snooze. Just 5 more minutes. And then 5 minutes becomes 10, and 10 becomes 30, and suddenly your day already feels a little off. It's such a small decision, but it affects everything after that. And then there are moments during the day. You sit down. Maybe you want to study, or work, or do something important. You tell yourself, okay, I'm going to focus now. And maybe you really mean it. But then your phone is right there. You see a notification, or maybe not even a notification. Maybe you just feel like checking, just for a second.
And that's the moment, that very small moment. You have 2 choices. You can stay focused, or you can pick up your phone. And most of the time, if we're being honest, we pick up the phone. And it's interesting, right? Because we know what we should do. We're not confused. We understand. But there's a gap between knowing and doing. And I think that gap, that space between intention and action, that's where self-control lives. For me, I've noticed that self-control is not about big decisions. It's about small, repeated moments, over and over again. Another area where I feel this a lot is emotions. There are days when everything feels fine. You feel calm, you feel patient, you feel in control. But then something happens. Maybe someone says something you don't like. Maybe something doesn't go the way you expected. And suddenly you feel it, that emotion. Maybe it's frustration. Maybe it's anger. Maybe it's stress. And in that moment, you want to react immediately. You want to say something. You want to express it. But later, when everything is calm again, you think, maybe I shouldn't have said that. I think we've all experienced that moment when emotion is stronger than control. And I don't think the goal is...
But maybe self-control is about creating a small space between feeling and reacting. Just a small pause. Even 1 second. Even 1 breath. Because in that pause, we have a choice. We can react automatically, or we can respond more carefully. And I think that small difference can change a lot. Sometimes I also think about self-control in terms of habits, the things we do every day, without thinking too much. Some habits are helpful. Some habits, not really. And the difficult part is, bad habits are usually easier. They feel comfortable. They feel natural. Like scrolling your phone. Like procrastinating. Like choosing something easy instead of something important. And good habits, they require effort. At least in the beginning. You have to choose them. Again and again. Even when you don't feel like it. And that's where self-control becomes important again. But I've also realized something. Self-control is not about being strict all the time. It's not about saying no to everything. Because if you try to control everything perfectly, you will feel tired. You will feel stressed. And maybe you will give up. So I think there needs to be balance. Some days you are focused. Some days you are not. Some days you make good decisions. Some days you don't. And that's okay. I think what really matters is not being perfect, but being aware. Awareness changes everything. When you start to notice your habits, when you start to see your patterns, you begin to understand yourself better.
For example, maybe you realize that you always lose focus at night. Or maybe you notice that you feel more emotional when you are tired. Those small observations are powerful because once you see them, you can start to change them slowly, not in a big dramatic way, but in small steps. Maybe you don't change everything, but you change one thing. Maybe you decide, tonight I will not use my phone before sleep. Or today I will focus for just 10 minutes. And that's enough. Because small changes, when repeated, become something bigger. I also think it's important to talk about how we treat ourselves, especially when we fail. Because we will fail. That's part of the process. But sometimes when we fail, we become very hard on ourselves. We say things like, I'm not disciplined. I can't do this. I always fail. And those thoughts don't really help. In fact, they make things worse. Because when you feel bad about yourself, it becomes even harder to try again. So maybe self-control is also about kindness. Not just controlling your actions, but also understanding yourself. Accepting that you are still learning. Because growth is not perfect. It's messy. It goes up and down. Some days you feel strong, some days you don't. And both are part of the journey. I think the more we accept that, the easier it becomes to keep going. And maybe that's the real point. Not to be perfect, but to keep trying. To keep choosing better, even if it's just a little better. And over time, those small choices, they start to build something. Something stronger, something more stable. And maybe that's what real self-control looks like. Not perfect control, not strict discipline, but awareness, balance, and consistency. Just showing up again and again. Anyway, that's just something I've been thinking about lately. Self-control is simple in theory, but in real life, it's a daily practice. In small moments, in quiet decisions. And maybe we are all learning it, step by step. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I really hope this episode feels a little more real, a little more personal. And I hope when you think about your own habits, your own decisions, you don't feel pressure, just awareness. That's enough to start. Thank you for listening to Fluent Start. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye.